Hey, welcome back to Full Circle Cinema. I'm your host, Marcos Melendez, the managing editor of FullCircleCinema.com. Today, I'll be joined by our lead news writer, Jacob Campbell, and we'll be reviewing Loki. This will be just a review for episode 1, spoiler-free, of course. But yeah, we'll get right into it. What's your first thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this show. I think it's been one of my most highly anticipated Marvel shows on Disney Plus. When they announced them all, I just love Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and I think he's one of the best characters to come out of the Marvel universe. So getting to see him have the spotlight for his own show was really exciting for me. And honestly, the show definitely lived up to the hype. Episode 1 was a great first introduction to Loki as a solo character, and the kind of this introducing all these new elements in the show. I don't want to get into specifics because it is a little bit spoilery for you guys, but it did a great job of establishing what the TVA is and what the show has in store for fans for this season.
So yeah, I think I'm gonna end up agreeing with you a lot in this review, and I think out of the 3 Disney Plus shows we've had so far, I think Loki was the one I was least interested in. I like Loki as a character, but I think that I've had a hard time agreeing with the character a lot because of the fact, he sets like this big villain, but Disney wants to make him this likable character. And I don't think it's really worked perfectly. And I think that this show is that opportunity. And this first episode certainly shows that they can do it. And I think this is also the best. Some people have said this first episode isn't perfect or anything like that, of course, but I think it's probably one of the better episodes from the past 2 Disney Plus series, including WandaVision.
I definitely agree with that. I felt like it did a great job of establishing what the show is going to be about, but also still keeping those little mysteries of what to look forward to. I really enjoyed the first episodes of WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I don't know, something about this just felt more expansive, and so it feels like there's more that's going to happen that I can look forward to.
Exactly, and let's get into it. So in this show, Loki, of course, deals with the time variant agency, and that's like a big part of the show. That's pretty much everything the show is about, and it definitely throws you in for a loop because it's a different dynamic than I think what most people would think. This isn't your action packs like Falcon and Winter Soldier or your comedic WandaVision. This is like a straight up drama. This 50 minutes of like drama, and I think it's probably the best they've had so far.
It felt kind of like a buddy cop. It felt like a buddy cop show. I wanted to say it seems similar to True Detective. Do you agree in that regard?
I haven't seen it, but I can probably see where you're coming from. But
Yeah.
I think there is that buddy cop element. I think we'll talk about that when we talk about Owen Wilson, who's a really big part of the show, second to Loki.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about him.
So the TVA is kind of this big overlooming thing in this series, and I think that's by far one of the best parts about what this show is going to do for the MCU. I think they've been set up really well. They have some scenes of exposition, but they go really seamlessly. I think that it's so cool because I think the show is really making all this seem realistic and based in a reality, even though it's so crazy and out there. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of the show. It kind of like just grounds everything, even though it has such huge implications for the universe and the rest of the movies. And I feel like the TV is here to stay. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, the way they set up the TVA in the first episode already, they're going to be a big part of the Marvel universe moving forward. Just because of it, it's so hard to talk about without spoiling it. But it's like you realize that they are an important part of Marvel, which is kind of interesting because I feel like the TVA is a real deep cut, like Marvel Comics group.
Yeah, I had no clue what they were.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like I feel like I've heard of it, but I can't tell you anything about it. It's so they do a great job of introducing them.
I think it's interesting because the MCU has tried that with Shield and other agencies, but I feel like this is like the big, especially with the what is it called, bro? McCreary's in right now.
A Sword.
Sword. I think this is even better. This has done a much better job setting up TVA than they've done with Sword.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that.
I think it's way more interesting as well. I think there's some really cool thematic elements you're doing with Owen Wilson's character and how he lives in that world. But I think let's go back to Loki. I think Loki is a really good part of this episode, but I do have my gripes, and I'll get to that later. But what do you think of Loki's arc so far?
In the first episode already, I really like what they did with his character. Because keeping in mind, this isn't the Loki that we saw in Ragnarok. He hasn't had all his character development that the fans.
Exactly, and
Yeah,
that is a big part of this episode.
exactly.
Him
So
confronting that.
they got to jump from 2012 Avengers Loki to get him up to speed and at the same level that, or close to the same level that he's at development wise that he was in Ragnarok. So knowing that, they already had a lot on their plate, but they did a great job of making me be like, okay, cool, I still love this character and I can't wait to see what this Loki does. He's independent of the Loki we know, but he's already established himself in a great way.
Exactly, and without getting into spoilers, I think they've done a really cool job of just having this character have like maybe perhaps a path of redemption, something he
Yeah.
hasn't had whatsoever in the other movies, and the show sets that up really well. And I was really worried about that before the watching the show. Yeah, I felt like the MCU really likes to glorize him, and I thought that's what they're gonna do here, but it's really the opposite, and that's they hit you with that head on in the first episode.
Yeah.
And that especially comes to terms with Owen Wilson's character, who comes in like halfway through, but he's like easily the second biggest part of the show.
Yeah,
What do you think about him?
I'm really excited to talk about his character.
And first,
when they
it's not a comic character, right?
Mobius is a comic character, but he's almost like he's on the same level of obscurity I feel like as the TVA, where he's like Mobius, sure, yeah, but
Okay.
do you want to give your impressions first, or should I?
Now you go for it, bro.
All right, perfect. So, when they announced Owen Wilson was in the show, I was so excited because I really like Owen Wilson, and I feel like he everything he's in is fun, and so getting to see him in the Marvel universe was really exciting for me, and he did I want to say surprisingly good job, but it was like he was really great in the first episode. Like his interactions with Loki and the TVA were really good. Like his character is cool, but it's like it feels like Owen Wilson. Like it feels like an Owen Wilson character, but in the best way possible.
True, and he's not playing, and you say that, and I agree, but he's also not playing this generic, Owen Wilson type guy. There's layers to him. He has really good comedic moments with Loki, and I think their dynamics are really good. And I think something that I struggled with the episode, especially in the beginning, that some of the dialogue felt a little clunky, and I thought some of the comedic moments with Loki wasn't like funny at all.
Okay.
But then once that dynamic kind of like brought in, everything flowed way better, and I felt like his, Mobius has a really good perspective within the show. And it's kind of like, of course, Loki's way of learning what the TVA is, but it's also our way of learning. And there's a really cool human element to it that, of course, we can't get into, but I hope we will be able to in the next reviews.
Yeah, there's like a moment in the first episode where it just clicks, and Mobius and Loki, their dynamic and their interactions just become just one of my favorites that I've seen for the character so far.
And it's something so important. It's how like it's yeah, you're setting up all this TVA stuff, and it's really big implications. And I really wish I could talk about it, but it's so also focused on the fact that these are two really like human characters, even though one's a god.
Yeah,
These are real characters that has to have some type of arc, and I feel like they're really honing in on that, and I'm really excited how they're balancing it. And I think that balancing act is done really well. I've seen some people kind of like dig at this episode because I think it's a slow burn. I agree, but it's so
Yeah.
interesting. Like nothing really, like people aren't fighting, but it's interesting, and I like how things are just being played out.
yeah, I definitely agree with that, the slow burn comment, but it feels like it was done, but it's purposeful in that way, where this is meant to set everything up for the rest of the season. So I feel like the next few episodes are going to or they're going to jump straight into the mystery of the show. So that's great.
Yeah, and I think not to let them bag on the other shows, but I think this is the first Disney Plus show that knows that it's a television show and not a movie. Like it's paced like a television show and knows that even though it's only 6 episodes, each of these are like I think 50 minutes long. There isn't this need for big action sequences, but when you get, I think some of the action, when you get some of that, it's cool. But you're focused on the characters, focused on the lore. I think it's something really good that I think the MCU does over anything else, right? Is bringing this obscure stuff into like the mainstream. And I think Sword, I'm not into Sword yet, and I think there's some parts of WandaVision I wasn't into, but I think with this they've kind of like hit the nail on the head and found out. what they want to do, and I think Kevin Feige's pretty smart hiring the writer for this for it seems like every project now.
Yeah, I know. I believe they're working on Doctor Strange, correct?
I think so. He's also working on that Star Wars movie. He made a
Yeah.
big deal with Disney, I believe. I
Yeah,
forgot
it's
his
kind of
name.
exclusive. That'll be cool. But I wanted thing I wanted to talk to you about. You mentioned like they did a great. It feels like a TV show, and I definitely agree with that because when they first advertised all these Disney Plus series, they said that they'd be character driven and really get into these characters that haven't had a moment to shine in their own way. And I feel like I agree with that definitely with this show. Like Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision, it did give us more time to focus on Wanda, Falcon, Vision, and Bucky. But at the same time, it still felt like it was driving, hey, here's a future project that to look forward to. But Loki, it feels like, hey, we're focusing on Loki. This is Loki's time to shine. He's getting his own spotlight. And it did a great job of that. And earlier you mentioned Mobius and him are two great. You mentioned that Loki is a god, and that's a great point because the Loki that we know from Ragnarok, and he had already had that development where he's become. I feel like he cares about people more than he originally did, but this Loki doesn't have that. He still thinks of himself as I'm a god. I'm better than everyone else around me. So it does a great job of humanizing him and bring him down to everyone's level so that he can start to work with
And
them.
as Owen Wilson's character, I think says at one point, he sees something in Loki, right?
Yes.
There's a possible path to redemption, and I really like that.
Yeah.
Even though, of course, probably won't be he won't be a good guy, but I feel like it's going in that direction.
He'll
I'm very much
be
enjoying
Loki
that.
in the best way.
Yeah. But yeah, I think
yeah.
if I'm gonna leave you with like, if you're watching this, like one thing is that this isn't like a big Marvel movie. This is like your Loki HBO Netflix show. It's like a real series that's gonna really focus on Loki, the TVA, Owen Wilson. This is what that's about, and it's gonna
Yeah.
have huge implications. So this is a must watch.
Oh, 100%. You can definitely tell they're setting up some big things with this show. Is there anything else you want to mention? Any other little spotlights?
Look, I want to go into spoilers, but I think that's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
Yeah, well, the main villain of the show is, but
I wish.
we won't talk about that. Some last little things I want to talk about. I feel like the production design for the show and the music is just so good.
Music is really good. That's something I forgot to mention.
Yeah,
It's
like
really
the
good.
opening credits and the closing credits. Oh my god, it's just so good. It's just the theme is just perfect. I love it so much. I think it's my favorite theme out of the 3 shows so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Henry Jackman, I think he did Falcon. I'm not sure.
He did a
That
great
was
job,
good,
but I don't know
but-
what this one's
but
just. It
this
just
is-
hits
this is a lot
different.
better. Yeah,
It's got
and in
that-
that way. It definitely
mhm.
feels different from anything else in the MCU, and it's not like
Yeah.
just being hyperbolic. It actually does.
Yeah, we don't want to sound like huge stands right now, but it's just so good.
Mm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I feel like everyone with every show, something someone says something hyperbolic about it, and I feel like this show earns it and it deserves praise.
Yeah, I know it's always like every movie or show. It's like, oh, this is the best thing Marvel's ever made.
Yeah.
We're not saying that. We're just saying this is. It feels very different
pretty
in its
close.
own way. It's very close, but it feels different than what we've seen before with the other shows, and so I'm looking forward to see what else they do with it.
Yeah. But, let's wrap this up. Let's
Yeah.
give it an out of 10 rating.
Oh, out of 10.
'cause,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give
I'm
it.
gonna give it an 8.
I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Just because there's still more that I want to see, but it did a great job.
Yeah, great setup, and I'm interested. I'm in.
Absolutely.
Liked it. All right, if you enjoyed the review, please like and subscribe. We need it. Our houses depend on it. I don't have a
Mhm,
roof,
mhm.
so maybe you guys could pay for it.
Yep. Our editor in chief
Uh,
said he's firing Marcos if we don't get views on this, so please support.
That is true. You can follow us at Full Circle Cinema on Twitter. You can also follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, Full Circle Cinema.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Marcos, do you want to plug
you can
yourself?
follow. You could follow Jacob at Jacob Camp, but it's on the screen.
Oh, it's on the screen, but we just like to plug
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm good though.
There we go.
All right, see ya.
Thanks, guys. Bye.